Let's get to more of the day's top stories now. Joining me is former Victorian Party President Michael Kroger and Liberal Senator Anne Ruston. Thank you both for your time, and I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Now, the Prime Minister has ruffled feathers among some of the top figures of the Yes campaign after he claimed that the failed referendum was not a personal loss for him because he was not Indigenous. One figure from the Yes campaign was quoted as saying the blacks did the work for 7 years and Labor killed it. Michael, is Anthony Albanese dodging accountability for this fail?
Well, not only that, but, you know, Carolyn, when you look at his recent performance, this guy's just losing the plot everywhere, isn't he? I mean, he supported Israel at the beginning, but now he's gone off them. He's lost control of the immigration process, the borders, and now this bizarre statement how it's not a loss for him. I mean, he was the one that put up this extreme referendum. You know, he and Dreyfus should have said to the more extreme elements of the Aboriginal community, we're not going with, you know, a referendum which is at the extreme end of the options, which was this whole notion of being able to make representations to the entirety of government and the public service. So the loss is his loss. It was his decision. And I've found people today bewildered at what he's saying. But, you know, as I've been saying on Sky recently, this bloke's becoming the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime, beyond worse than Whitlam, worse than Rudd. And today's bizarre comment is just another example of why that's true.
Senator, surely if there had been a win, Mr Albanese would have been completely claiming the credit for that himself and his party. But what does this say about Labor? They say that they're closing the gap on Indigenous issues. Do you see it that way?
Well, quite clearly, all you have to do is look at the results to see that they're not closing the gap. But, you know, for a Prime Minister who has invested so much political capital in this voice to then sort of almost say nothing to see here, it's got nothing to do with me, he's now left himself with no real agenda to move forward in terms of dealing with the issues that are confronting some of the most vulnerable in our Indigenous communities, some of the most vulnerable Australians in total. And so, you know, we know that some of the most practical, on-the-ground solutions to helping Indigenous Australians are the things that work, not some Canberra-based voice that's being dictated from the bureaucracy. It simply was never going to work. But, you know, for him to walk away and somehow say that this isn't important to him and it's not a loss to him, I think is extraordinarily insensitive and extraordinarily disrespectful for a whole heap of people that work really, really hard. And it was his actions and his belligerence and his persistence on this extreme version of the referendum that ultimately killed the thing in the first place.
Very true. Let's move on to another big topic dominating the headlines today. One of Australia's largest health networks, St Vincent's, still does not know if hackers stole private medical data almost a week after it became the target of a cybersecurity breach. Now, Senator, as the shadow health and aged care spokeswoman, I know you've been critical over how Labor have handled this. Why?
Well, where are they? I mean, they've been completely missing in action. We've had sort of one comment from Anthony Albanese on Friday that he was going to get a briefing some 4 days after the supposed or this attack has taken place. We've seen nothing from the Health Minister when potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have had their sensitive, could have had their sensitive health and medical records breached. And they're completely missing in action. I mean, they seem to have just gone on holidays and completely forgotten about they actually have a job as a government to govern 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You don't get to take Christmas off when these sorts of things happen. So I'm very critical that we're sitting here over a week later. We still don't really know what's going on. I don't know how much help has been provided to St Vincent's, who are obviously trying to work on this. And we've got a minister that's on holidays and a Prime Minister who was going to get a briefing some days after the event occurred.
Well, hackers certainly don't seem to take Christmas holidays. But Michael, how concerning for patients is it that St Vincent's is still unsure of what data has been stolen?
Well, look, they should be very concerned because these are people's health records. They are incredibly sensitive and no one would want anyone's private health records published for very good reasons. But, you know, as the Senator has just said, you know, hospitals are not experts in cybersecurity. They're experts in healthcare. They're not in the business of cybersecurity. They do their best. But ultimately you need the federal government, not the state government, you need the federal government to be in charge of cybersecurity in this country. And once again, where's Claire O'Neill, the Home Affairs Minister? And by the way, you can tell a government's in decline when no one wants to be responsible for bad news. Early on in a government, people front up, they take responsibility, they say, mate, I stuffed up, I'll go out there and front the press. So you've always got Albo now, who doesn't want to be anywhere near any bad news. Those High Court decisions on the refugees being let out, he doesn't want to know anything about it. A very brief press conference about this. Where's the Health Minister? MIA. Claire O'Neill, missing in action. So basically you've got all these ministers, staffers ringing each other saying, my minister's not going out today, your minister has to go out. My minister's not going out, get the Prime Minister to go out. And no one wants to front the cameras because it's another enormous stuff up that the federal government should be doing something about, but they have no idea what to do.
It's a very convenient time to suddenly be unavailable, but Christmas holiday period,
Unavailable.
where they can just easily come up with that excuse.